Rivian has been producing the R1T electric pickup for several years now. In fact, it can fairly lay claim to being the first mass-produced electric pickup on the market. And since the R1T came off the production line for the very first time, we've seen the R1S join it, the R1T's SUV sibling. They're built on the same chassis, and alongside those two vehicles, Rivian has also been producing its delivery vehicle, first exclusively for Amazon, and now as a vehicle that other companies can buy for fleet use. This week, Rivian unveiled what will be the next vehicle in its R family of electric vehicles, the R1T. It also unveiled a couple of surprises that no one was expecting. So let's go there, dig deep, and tell you everything we know. Before we get too far into today's video, a little disclaimer, I am doing this completely off script, partly because the reveal event has literally just happened, and also because I have a hand in a splint following my F-150 Lightning crash last week. I'm feeling a lot better, but this is probably not going to be as smooth as our usual scripted videos. Let's get to it. On Thursday morning, around 10 AM Pacific, Rivian began its official live stream, and unlike Tesla live streams, Rivian began its live stream on time, which was a nice change because the EV world does have a tendency to start its live streams late. During the live stream, Rivian CEO RJ Scaringe told us about the R1T and R1S and all of the successes those two vehicles have had to date, and unveiled the R2 electric SUV. It's a tad smaller than the R1S, but the family resemblance is most definitely there. What is different, though, is the fact that this vehicle uses a completely different battery pack and drivetrain setup, and while there are definitely some stylistic changes between the R1S and R2, what's really exciting is all of the extra features that have been added in. This vehicle is primarily designed to be a global vehicle, and that's super important because both the R1T and the R1S are, let's be honest, designed and built for the North American market. Granted, they are both smaller than, say, the Ford F-150 or, in fact, the Ford Explorer SUV. But when it comes to a global market, people want smaller vehicles, and that's why the R2 exists. Interestingly, the starting price, an estimated $45,000 before any fees or incentives, should get buyers excited, although its planned start date for production, which I'll come to a little later on, might result in some price changes between now and then. Just as other automakers have evolved their battery pack choices as their electric fleet have matured, so too is Rivian doing this, with an evolution from the 2170 form factor cells that are found in the R1T and R1S to 4695 form factor cells for the R2. These cylindrical cells are much bigger than the 2170 cells in the R1 series, and they're also a little bit larger than Tesla's 4680 form factor cells. Rivian says that the 4695 cells have been designed to implement a structural battery pack design, so think cell to pack, and they will allow the Rivian R2 to have a pretty lightweight chassis while retaining all of the rigidity that you would come to expect and need when putting a battery pack in a vehicle. What's interesting to note, though, is that while the R1 series vehicles are available in pickup and SUV form, there was absolutely no mention during the live stream of an R2T pickup. That's not to say it won't happen further down the line, but it does seem to suggest that Rivian is focusing on the growing SUV market. And for a global model, this makes sense, because while there are plenty of buyers, including myself, in North America who would love to see some smaller, practical electric pickups come to market, Globally, pickups are less popular than vans and SUVs, so I can see Rivian leveraging the R2 SUV as its primary global expansion model. And even though it's not a pickup, there are some interesting points to note about the vehicle's design that make it incredibly flexible. The first one is the fact that the R2 SUV's seats all fold flat. Not just the rear seats, but the front seats too, which RJ Scaringe said makes it possible to easily camp in your R2 wherever you happen to be. There was mention of an airbed, which suggests that Rivian is going to be offering that as one of its many planned accessories for the R2 family of vehicles. And that was something that Rivian did emphasize during the live stream, the fact that these vehicles are designed to be not only just commuters but also lifestyle vehicles, and there's going to be a whole array of different attachments and racks that you'll be able to buy to go with your R2 in the future. In addition to those fold flat seats, the rear window also drops completely down into the tailgate, which allows you to carry items longer than the R2 with ease. Of course, whether you'll be able to do that depends on markets and what is legal where you live, but it should be easy to drop that rear window down and shove in large items like a surfboard or skis, and as long as that rear window is down, you'll be able to carry a lot of things. While I'm on the subject of storage, I should also throw a bone to a rather amusing moment during the reveal where RJ Scaringe showcased not one but two glove boxes in the front of the R2. A lack of glove box was criticised in the R1 family, and so I guess Rivian decided to add two to the R2. All jokes aside though, they look pretty decent sized and should give you some extra storage capabilities for trinkets. RJ Scaringe also noted that the speakers have been moved out of the doors in the R2, and that should give extra storage bin capabilities up front for things like water bottles. But being a Rivian, you still get that personal rechargeable torch in the door when you need it. Despite being smaller than the R1 family though, R2 is going to come with a whole host of sensors. RJ Scaringe said that we can expect 11 cameras and 6 different sensors on the R2, which should enable hands-off autonomous driving. A level wasn't given, but I'm going to assume we're talking somewhere high level 2, level 3 autonomous driving, similar to the functionality currently offered by Ford's Blue Cruise and GM's Super Cruise. It's conceivable though, because the car is not due to launch for another 2 years, that we might see a higher level of autonomy, but that's to be determined at a later date. When it comes to drivetrain, you're going to get 3 different motor choices. You can get a single motor, a dual motor, or a triple motor setup, all of which, according to RJ Scaringe, will have up to 300 miles of targeted EPA range. I'm afraid I haven't converted that into kilometers, but hey, I'm going to ask Em to put it on screen right there. Thanks, Em. The highest performance variant of the R2, the 3-motor setup, will have a sprint time of less than 3 seconds, and that means that this is going to be quite the beast when driving. Of course, we don't know yet how it will handle and what its performance will be like in the real world, but having driven the R1T several times, I like the style of the R1T, and I can hope that that drive feel is translated well into the R2. There was no mention of off-road capabilities, certainly not to the level that the R1T and R1S can manage, but you could bet a large sum of money it's going to be as off-road capable, because that's integral to the Rivian brand. Now let's talk about production and planned rollout for the vehicle. Rivian promised that the R2 will enter into production in the first half of 2026. That's about 2 years away, and that is a tall order for the company. Eventually, Rivian plans to make the R2 at its new production facility in Georgia, But interestingly, RJ said that initial R2 production will begin at its normal Illinois production facility as a way of bringing the vehicle to market a little more quickly. This is a really interesting ploy on the part of Rivian, especially given that it's yet to make a profit on any of its quarterly earnings, but it could certainly help the company reach profitability a little bit quicker. With the R2 revealed, the only thing to throw in now is the fact that the order books are open today. Rivian is doing the now standard thing in the EV world where you can put your name down to get in line to have a chance to buy one. A $100 deposit in the US puts you in the queue, but there's no discussion yet as to when the vehicle will launch in different parts of the world. I expect it to launch in the US and Canada first, with other markets following on. So if you're in Europe and you've wanted a Rivian for a while, you may still have quite a wait to get in line to buy one. With the R2 revealed, Rivian did a sneaky and revealed another vehicle that very few people knew about, the R3. It was essentially RJ Scaringer's one more thing moment, but as you'll find out, that actually happened not once but twice in the reveal event. The R3 is a true crossover to the R2's SUV and is even smaller than the R2. This is a vehicle that we were told very little about, but we can expect a similar single, dual and triple motor setup into the future. It also has an adjustable rear glass so that you can also carry things larger than the vehicle without having to have the entire rear hatch open, which frankly I wish more electric crossovers offered. The seats also fold flat in a very similar style to the R2, meaning you should theoretically also be able to camp inside it. And just like the R2 and the R1, it will also come with a front trunk with plenty of space for all of your things. It's worth noting here that the R3 reminds me very strongly in terms of silhouette of a beefed up Yugo or possibly a second generation Golf. It's got that same hatch design and styling, and I think it's a really good looking vehicle, especially when we have kind of morphed into very samey vehicles, and the R2's design is very much like the R1's, but the R3's design is very different. There are definitely family resemblances there, but I think if you grew up in the 80s and 90s, you're going to love the look of this R3. Also unveiled as a one more thing to the one more thing was the R3X, an out-and-out performance-ready variant of the R3. We were given very little details on this model, but promised that it will be a really good high-performance vehicle, and Rivian did tease that it might be a very good vehicle for dirt racing. At least, that's what I inferred from what was shown on screen. No prices were given for the R3 or the R3X, but hey, we can live in hope that they will be even more affordable than the R2's $45,000 starting price. Overall, this reveal event was a breath of fresh air and free from a lot of the hyperbole and bovine byproduct we're used to seeing at automotive launch events. It felt much more grounded and much more focused than a lot we've seen from other companies. Yes, I think it's going to be a while before we see the R2 or the R3 on streets, but this is an exciting prospect for a company that, while it has been around for some time, it was in stealth for many years before the R1 was revealed, certainly has its sights set on some really big and impressive things. It's also interesting to see what Rivian is doing now it's kind of severed its partnership with Ford, and I can't wait to see what the future holds. But that's me. Tell me what you think in the comments below.